Namaskar and good evening, friends. After the successful completion of Inspire series, we are back again with Resurgence, the series that we started off when this pandemic situation started hovering above our head. So we have come back again with Resurgence series, which is an attempt to understand and discuss the challenges that the art fraternity and art in general is facing during this pandemic situation through series of interactions with eminent artists who are from different fields, and they are not only artists, they are art entrepreneurs, curators, and most importantly, thinkers. So today also, I'm very happy to share that we have someone who has worked extensively in the field of art in varied and myriad roles as an institution builder, as an art commentator, scholar, and whatnot. So without any further delay, I would like to welcome Dr. Arshiya Sethi. Arshiya ji?
Hi, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, and welcome to Kalpataru's Resurgence series.
Thank you for having me here.
It's such a pleasure, Arshiya ji. You are such a, and I have always thought so that you wear so many hats and you work in so many different fields, and many of times I feel that how do you handle so many different roles, and whatever you do it with such ease, with such elegance. So it's a great opportunity to talk to you, Arshiya ji. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Sangita. Thank you so much for saying all these wonderful things. Let me assure you that wearing the many hats is no problem. The problem comes when somebody tries to describe me and I don't fit on one page.
Yeah.
So let me begin by wishing you a very happy Eid. I'm so glad that I'm doing this session with you on such a special day. And I hope those who are watching, I have no idea how many people are watching, but those who are watching also, I'd like to say happy Eid to all of them.
Happy Eid to all of you. To start with, Arshiya ji, and I would really like to know that you, after you did your MPhil from JNU, generally people get into academia or government. So what drew you towards arts?
So I would like to answer this question by first explaining that I did my MPhil in 1985 from JNU. And then went through the other milestones of life, including marriage and motherhood and all the responsibilities that come with that. And it was only in 2005, January, that I enrolled for my PhD. And I completed my PhD in 2013. So the journey has been a little truncated and a little different. What drew me to the arts and not other things? Well, for one, I did not make it through the exam. I took the IS exam twice and didn't make it through. I believe now that it was a blessing in disguise, because it allowed me then the daring to do what I wanted to do what I really loved doing, which was to be with the arts. I have been trained in dance myself, Kathak of the Jaipur Gharana, which has allowed me an insider's view. That is beneficial when you're working in the arts. And then I think the growth has been mostly organic. Whatever opportunities came my way, I just took them, went with the flow, and just stayed happy as I could.
That goes without saying that you are such an exuberant person, always emanating a lot of energy and positivity. Arshiya ji, so now you have played, as we already discussed, that you have played so many roles. You have been in Doordarshan, you have been a dance critic with Times of India, art administrator, institution builder. So all these roles, how did you really maneuver from one to the other, or were you doing it all together? Yeah.
So I was doing most of it all together. At least two of these roles at any given point of time were being done together. So for instance, when I was still in the university, as soon as I've graduated from college, which was when I was 20 years old. It's too hard for me to calculate when that was. It's a long time ago. That's all I can say. I got a chance to be on Doordarshan, and they were just quite struck by my ability to remember vast tracts of what would be the introduction to the national program of dance and music. Those were the days before the teleprompter. So you just had to know it, or know it well enough to speak, or have a great memory. I think it was a case of both of the skills of knowing a bit of dance and then having the memory, that I started presenting the national program of dance. That gave me very high visibility. So then I was asked to compare programs outside. Delhi had just then begun to be a conference capital, one of those important conference cities. So we were invited very often to come and compare. And I heard a terrible curation once being planned. And I intervened and I said, excuse me, please don't do it like this. So they looked at me and said, okay, then you do it. And that's how my role as a curator began. With the amount that I was doing of curation in conference situations, then came the chance to work on a new project, the India Habitat Center. I think this was a defining project for me. This is
if you could really share, because you were at the helm of building up this mega institution. So the experience.
Right. So thereafter, while the India Habitat Center is a tangible institution, there are many intangible institutions that I have built also. For instance, for example, festivals. Okay, so I have written, I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try and see if I've actually written about it in this book, which has been brought out by Routledge, and it says Dance Matters Too: Memories, Identities, and Markets. And my piece is in this, in which I have captured the journey as a curator. Okay, now I want to make a mention here that around the world now there is interest in curatorial studies. And there is a journal that is coming out for global curatorial studies from Canada, and we have an Indian on the board. So, this is really now taking thing. I remember in 2004 when I set up, 2003 when I set up Cree Foundation, one of the plans was to have a journal called Cree Iti, on curations of live art. Cree Iti, like that. It was before its time, I guess, and it never took off. But Cree Iti was certainly in my thought process, because I realized that there is enough research that needs to be done on curation. So I'm so glad that you have taken on this Resurgence series and are looking also at curators and other stakeholders other than performance people.
Right, because Arshiya, I have always felt that especially being in India and part of Indian dance scene, I've always felt that there have been a lot of festivals that happen in India, and there are really good festivals. But the point is that how do we curate a festival that can generate interest among common public, and if not common public, at least to the connoisseurs who are from varied spectrum. They are not only dancers per se, they are from the varied spectrum. And also, we all have experienced that, when we go for a particular performance or a festival, each year we see a common set of audience in that festival. So how do we create in a way that we get a varied, spectrum of audience? So if you could share something on that how do one really curate something which generates interest?
You, I think, have to keep many things in mind. One, you have to apply your mind. I always recommend writing a curatorial note in advance, a concept note. Why are you doing this festival? There is no point, as you rightly pointed out, repeating the limited resources available to the arts in the same thing over and over again, year after year. So there's a certain
and also I would say that many times this festival has same artists as well.
Yeah, well, That sometimes has a lot to do with who you know and how well do you know that person and how much command that you have on their,
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
decision making. But I feel that you should always look at working consciously towards new ideas, even if it is a small idea, but it can have a very big presentation. So for instance, if you were to take the idea of Abhinay, for instance, in the arts, Indian dance, you can build on various types of Abhinay. Well, first of all, there are 4 written in the Shastra itself, Natya Shastra, but you can build on many other concepts. So whatever you do, you may take a small seed, but it can grow into a giant tree, you know. So that's one thing. Never economize on ideation. My second point is consciously work towards a concept called audience enhancement. So you enhance your audience by having pre-events, by seeking newer areas to work in. And one thing I always say, very many artists tend to disagree with me. Try and serve the unserved. They may not be glamorous. For instance, please try and do programs to the one audience that cannot come to see you under any circumstances. Take, for instance, Tihar Jail. So amongst the most satisfying experiences that artists who have worked with me have had is the fact that I put them into these tough situations of Tihar Jail. Just citing an example from the Tihar Jail thing, when I spoke to the authorities in Tihar Jail that I'd like to bring a dance performance, they told me, no, madam, it is only a male audience who has not been out. We don't guarantee the safety of the dancer. But I thought that's so crazy because, I mean, this is the safest place to work in. But now I needed a dancer who was strong enough and believed enough. Kavita Dwivedi agreed to do this. She's the Odissi dancer based in Delhi. And so I was very relieved. And Kavita told me with tears in her eyes that at the point of the set, we had a 3,000 audience because it was a fixed audience. At the time of the sunset happening, you know, she was doing Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. There was pin drop silence. 3,000 men were just looking at her. And over the heads of those men, she could see the sun setting. She said it was the most moving moment in her dance life that she has done because she realized that this is such a hopeless audience. If she can give them hope even momentarily, that was a great, she was in a way a channel from God at that time, you know. So be daring, find new audiences and don't hesitate to do that. One other thing that helps is to build a festival is partnerships. And to explain what I'm talking about, let me talk to you about a specific festival that I did called the Dilli Ka Apna Utsav. I have a small PowerPoint ready for it. I don't know if this system will take it. If it doesn't, I'll just talk you through the issue. Otherwise, I'm going to give it a shot. So bear with me. Would you be able to control its release from that side? Do you want to try?
I will share. I will share.
Okay. So I'll keep talking meanwhile so that we don't waste precious time.
Yes, okay. Sure.
So Dilli Ka Apna Utsav is a very interesting concept. Delhi doesn't lack for festivals. You know, it is a city, the point where India meets the world. And so ICCR is very, very active here. Embassies are active here. Many festivals happen, including a festival that drew its name from the city, but which is an international festival. And so when it comes to national level festivals, because it represents all of India, Delhi becomes a site for these things. But the question to ask is, what happens to Delhi's own arts? So in 2010, the then Chief Minister of Delhi, Sheila Dikshit, tasked INTAC, Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, to prepare a dossier to get Delhi the World Heritage City nomination. You know that till then, India did not have a World Heritage City. But it had many World Heritage sites, including man-made, natural, and mixed sites, but no city. So she tasked INTAC. I'm an active member of INTAC, and INTAC people asked me to write that part of the dossier which dealt with intangible heritage of Delhi, by which I mean all the arts, culture, cuisine, calligraphy, sharbat making and all that. But as we read deeply into the format the UNESCO had provided to fill in the form, we discovered that they had a condition: what is being done specially to respect this cultural heritage? And we were doing nothing, because Delhi's own culture had fallen through the cracks. It had been a big international arts center. It has become a national arts center, but Delhi's own arts were sort of neglected in the process. So CRE Foundation, that's my foundation, responded promptly and partnered with INTAC and other agencies. We created in March 2014 a multi-activity, multi-venue, multi-audience environments. Can we move to the next slide if you don't mind?
Yeah.
And so this is the reason why we did the festival. It was to try and work towards getting this World Heritage City nomination, which, by the way, in 2014, soon about the same time that it was supposed to come, the government in its wisdom took away the dossier from UNESCO, and so Delhi never got that World Heritage City nomination, and other cities have picked it, including Ahmedabad. So can I have the next slide, please?
Yeah.
However, we at that time didn't know that this was going to be the fate, and we went ahead with the planning and the executing of the festival. Look at the logo of the festival.
Yes, I was coming to that, the logo is so interesting. If you could...
I would like to deconstruct this logo for you. You know that Delhi has 4 official languages: English, Hindi, Punjabi, and Urdu. If you look at all the names, of street names and all, it's given in all these 4 languages. That's because these 4 languages are the official languages of Delhi. So I used all 4 of those languages to write Delhi in the Delhi Ka Apna Utsav. And Punjabi, you have Hindi, you have English, and you have Urdu. Do you know in Urdu, the is written like this. If you look at it, you get the feeling that birds are flying off this tall pillar. Yeah, so that is the in Urdu. And it is indeed a reflection of birds, because what most people don't know is that Delhi has the second largest bird diversity as far as the capital city goes. Nairobi in Kenya has the highest bird diversity, and Delhi has the second highest bird diversity. Almost 400 birds are found in Delhi. I'm a bird watcher. This odd fact was known to me. Delhi also has a sizable green area, and that green patch reflects that. It has 3 World Heritage Sites in it. The Qutub Minar, which is the long arm that you see, the Red Fort, which is the, under the you can Urdu bird flying off, you can see it. And I draw your attention to the 2 eyes in Delhi. They are surmounted by 2 domes.
Domes,
because the 3rd heritage monument is Humayun's tomb, where the dome becomes such an important inspiration for the best known monument of India, which is the Taj Mahal. So this was it. People looked at it and said, it's not framed. There is no frame around it. I said, yes, we are waiting for the inscription. And then the year of the inscription around it, inscribed as a World Heritage City in the year 2014, because we were actually hoping it would happen in 2014, would have made the frame around it. But that didn't happen. So let's move to the next slide. Let's talk about what happened. So as I mentioned, it's so what I was talking about earlier was the fact that partnerships work very well. 5 fingers, when they work together, they create power. 1 little finger doesn't have quite so much power. So it was coincidence that we found that CRE Foundation, which was my foundation, was celebrating 10 years. INTAC was celebrating 30 years, and Kathak Kendra, where I was then the advisor, was celebrating 50 years. And it had also moved into its new Chanakyapuri sort of, building. And so we partnered quickly. None of us had the capacity to make such an impact individually, but through partnerships we could. Through partnerships, we were able to convince India Habitat Center to give us the one free day a year that they allow an organization. India Islamic Cultural Center, always promoting the arts that draw from the Islamic traditions, including storytelling of Dastan Goi and Kissa Goi. They were interested in that. So through intelligent planning, through intelligent partnerships, and through intelligent positioning, we were able to get a varied audience. Hence, we were building the audience. Our cause was bigger than the individual or the domain of dance alone. It was a city festival, talking about city arts. So we linked in a bigger scape than what would have been the thing. Just if you could show the next slides quickly, we will just finish this and we can ask me your next question. So you can see a whole variety of activities that were part of it. We had pre-events. They were held at that were held at Kathak Kendra and included walks, talks on Urdu language, on Dilli Gharanas music. It talked about tehzeeb. You know, Kathak is deeply rooted in tehzeeb because of the patronage it received from the Muslim courts. So all of this was the thing. But I draw your attention to one very unusual event that we wove in. Now, Sunday of the 5 days of the festival was a day that no venue was free. But were we not talking about a city? Why were we looking at limited venues? We had the whole city as our stage. And so we did 2 walks. The morning walk was called Poetic Pathways, led by Dr. Swapna Little, whose PhD is on 18th and 19th century Delhi. And the next one was on Shah Jahanabad Mein Kathak Ki Anokhi Duniya. And this was led by Dr. Naveena Jaffa, who is a scholar of heritage, and her PhD is on patterns of patronage in 5 cities. Delhi is one of those cities. So she gave us such amazing insights. And I don't know anyone who had attended a walk like this. Everybody was thrilled. And it was a great learning. And as luck would have it, in both cases, there was performance. Both walks ended in Ghalib Ki Haveli. In one at the end of one walk, we had recitation of Ghalib's poetry. At the end of the other walk, we had Naveena dance to Ghalib's poetry. So it was really very lovely. And there was performance and heritage and walking and understanding, contextualizations. It was a very rich experience. So so these are just some pictures. Yes, one thing I'd like to mention. I believe very strongly in creating new audiences. And so working with schools consciously is important. That time we did a 360-degree coverage of one school, Ramjas School. We worked with the students, we did workshops with the teachers, we had a lecture for parents, and the children adopted a monument. That was so important.
How wonderful.
And because Intact was responsible for the monuments, this whole thing just meshed in beautifully. Yeah. So I really feel very happy about the way I did it. Has it been done again? No, I'm afraid not. One of the reasons is that, so the 2 dancers that you see in this danced the poets of Delhi. And this is the Kissa Goi and Dastan Goi presentation, which was held at India Islamic Cultural Center. The previous slide was about the Dilli Gharana, and few people know the Sehras and the Bidai Geets with which Amir Khusro is associated. He wrote them. So the way they sang it, it was so beautiful. You know, if somebody is having a wedding in their family, I urge them to consider having the Dilli Gharana group perform the Sehras and Bidais for them. It was truly beautiful. Okay, so this is the end of my PowerPoint that was talking to you about the Dilli Ka Apna Utsav as an example of how intelligently you can curate, create partnerships and build audiences.
Absolutely. So you have very well explained that 2 points which has really come out so beautifully. That one, that partnership that you've spoken about, that not any single individual can do such a kind of a huge festival. And second thing, that how things can interweave and make it more interesting for the audience, because the audience then come from different varied spectrums, and then they choose what they would like to go for, and then it is somehow bringing weaving them in one thread that becomes so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at India Habitat Center also, I got a wonderful sort of slate to work on. It was a clean slate. Whatever got created was what it was, like a kora kagas, like a blank sheet of paper, and I was able to write things that were linked to issues that the city was dealing with, linked to issues that the country was dealing with, linked to issues that the people of the city were dealing in, habitat issues, environment issues, transportation issues. My scope was really wide. So I lived 10 of the most exciting years of my life curating for Habitat. That was a long strung, long drawn curation. A festival curation is very different. It is tight, it is for limited days, and it has to make its point really clear. And everything from beginning to end has to be thought of very well and detailed very well. Otherwise, you have way too many slips, things don't work out, So for those who aspire to do curations, the more you work on paper, the better your curation will be.
More.
Go deep into research.
Absolutely.
You never know where a new idea can come out. For instance, one of the ideas that I was not able to do, but I would have loved to do it, and is to do one of Professor Rita Ganguly's sung performances. Begum Akhtar, she's a shagird of Begum Akhtar. So Begum Akhtar Sahiba lived in Delhi for a very, very long time. So Rita ji could have, because she lived with her very closely, knew many interesting aspects of her life, anecdotal and historical, she would have woven a script and sung the songs of Begum Akhtar and all that. But I think Rita ji was not well at that time, so we couldn't do it. And so it also depends on luck sometimes, what you can weave into a festival. But you have to think big. And you can settle for small.
So Arshiya ji, I was thinking that you have been Fulbright's fellowship twice, and you were in Lincoln Center. So what was your experience there? How you started your journey in US in Lincoln Center?
So when I was at the Lincoln Center, I was the first Fulbrighter to be directly ever associated with the Lincoln Center. This meant that I didn't go immediately after getting my fellowship. It took a little while because Lincoln had never had any Fulbright directly associated with them. So when I asked them why, they then took me. What was it? And they said it was the scape of your work. But the scape of my work was purely accidental. There is no training institute. There is no way. I was learning on the job. I would be very careful, try not to make mistakes. And I have no embarrassment in confessing that in my 10 years as creative head at Habitat Center, I made one mistake. One. I still remember all the details. We don't have to go about it, but so you have to aspire towards perfection and work towards fault-free things. It has to become chalta hai attitude is not good enough. Absolutely. Chalta hai attitude, which many of us live with in India, which people say is a very good attitude to have because you do not have mental health issues, you don't have stress and all that. But when you sign a work as yours, it has to be as close to perfect or as close humanly as possible to perfect. You need to aspire to that. You cannot settle for seconds. Yeah, that's true. That was my second Fulbright was as a scholar, which is also in a way linked with the first Fulbright because while I worked at the Lincoln, I stayed at near Columbia University. I stayed in Columbia housing, and there were scholars all around me, and that desire which I had left behind in 1985 when I finished my MPhil sort of got activated again, and I knew I had to come back and go back to academics. I believe that is my scholarly work is my last reinvention, and that I have whatever is left of my natural life I can spend in writing. There is so much to be written about. The new PhD work and the new work that I'm doing, research work, which is on pioneers of Indian dance in America, is fascinating. I can live working there in this field for a very long time. So basically the two got enmeshed. I finished my PhD, I returned, finished my PhD in India, and got an opportunity to apply again. Now, I'm very grateful that I got the second Fulbright. It doesn't come to many people. There are very few in the world with two Fulbrights.
Absolutely, of course.
So I'm very, very grateful to God that I got that.
True. Arshiya, now coming to the topic of today, that we are in a world right now which has never been envisioned by anyone, and the art scenario is also has got its own share in it. The kind of the challenges that the arts were already, that economically it was always had the challenges, and with this kind of a situation the challenges have even become bigger. So in that front, what would you like to say? Because I have been really following you, and during this pandemic time itself, on your poetries, you have really created some beautiful dance videos. So, and you have been working with dance on camera projects since very long, like, before all this started. Because in India, it was never that popular. It was always there in internationally, but in India, it was not that popular. So would you like to share something about that?
Yes, I would. Be very happy to share, but this is a very long topic you have asked me to speak on. So if you don't mind, I'd like to break it up into two parts. I would like to talk about the reality on the ground first before giving the details about the Dance in the Camera project. So nobody was prepared for the world for this turn. Yes, economically there was a downturn. We had learned to live with it. This was not the first downturn that the arts were facing. One of the basic fundamental problems about the way Indian arts are organized is that they are too dependent on state patronage. And the state is too dependent on its tax revenue and revenue status. So every time the economy gets bamboozled, so do the arts. The arts did not make their own place in the market, especially the classical arts. They are like hothouse plants. You have to look after them very carefully, temperature behave, you have to make sure that the monies come, you have to support them. Tickets are never sold. So
Absolutely,
there's a certain sense of entitlement that the classical arts have been ascribed. Now, if an artist is happy to sit in that comfort zone and never strive, then they can actually suffer livelihood issues when the times are bad. Sometimes times are so bad that even those who have made their place in the market as a way suffer greatly. So some of the
that is the time that we all are going through. This is
that is
high
the time. No,
that
this time is even more complicated because it has a third aspect to it. The uncertainties, we don't know when it'll end, is creating a mental health crisis. All of us are living alone and isolated lives, but on social media, we are together. I was never on social media. I felt that scholarship and social media didn't really go together because it's a very noisy space, the social media space. And for scholarship, you need to be a little more quiet than that. But the minute this pandemic hit us, I immediately joined social media to be able to keep my ear to the ground, to know what the arts fraternity is feeling. And I'm startled to see a very high degree of negativity. Initially, I thought it was only sadness. You know the difference between sadness and depression. Sadness comes and goes, depression stays. Okay. So initially, I thought maybe it was just sadness because our span was too short. But now I'm feeling that it is a little more complex. And some days ago, I stayed up all night. I do my best writing, I feel, at night. And I wrote out a mental health proposal. I'm hoping that it will be picked up because I think it is much needed. But all I can say that till it is picked up, if at all it is picked up, we, you, me, and all of us have to create a safety net for each other. So every day, your one day at a time duty is to make sure that you are safe and positive, and that you are looking after at least one other person to make sure that they are safe and positive. And you don't have to do very much, just making sure you're in touch, you're pepping people up. Otherwise, we have seen in the space of films how many tragedies have happened.
Yes, yes, absolutely. This time has
It
been
would sadden me greatly if such a
cruel.
tragedy was to visit the arts, and we were watching there helplessly. So let us look out for each other. That is the first and immediate solution that I can offer for this mental health crisis. With respect to livelihoods, now here I will weave in my dance and the camera experience. Okay. So I have a small PPT ready. I don't know if this system will take
Yes.
it. It
Yes,
has
I will
just a
try.
few slides in it, and we can discuss that. And then I will come back to the poetry and my danced poems story that you talked about. So my dance and the camera work that I have been doing, and you'd be surprised to know that I have been doing it from 2002, even before Cree Foundation was set up. So we have been working on showing films, and my partner in this was Sangita Chatterjee, the recipient of the Padma Shri, Odissi dancer based in Bhubaneswar, with a very dynamic NGO called Art Vision. She had curated at the Mumbai International Film Festival a small section on dance for the camera films. So I found a kindred soul. You know about my association with television. I used to present the National Program of Dance and Music. And I've always been, if there's one word that describes me, it's curious. I'm always curious to know what's happening, where is it happening, how does it happen, and things like that. So while watching a rehearsal in the studio of a particular dancer, I don't recall exactly who it was, I actually asked the cameraman, and I was waiting to do my announcement for that. I asked the cameraman, can I see from your camera? And the first shot I saw was a totally inverted space. So the way you see dance on stage is exactly the opposite from the way the camera treats it. So I jumped off that stool, and I was wanting to tell all my friends that, hello, you know, just don't do a stage choreography for camera, because it's different. But that started a whole series of questions in my mind about what all does the camera do and the editing process do to dance. Once when I was not well and I could not go and see dance live, it was about a week of fever or something I had, I watched a lot of dance films. And I realized that we in India have so much to offer, but we are not using our potential completely. So for instance, and can we go to the next one, please? So I started the idea of dance lens, and dance lens is a portmanteau word of dance and the lens. But we don't only do films, we do dance films, but we do workshops with dancers and filmmakers, you know, sort of kindling the minds of both.
That's interesting.
Seminars, so that we understand the language and the concepts. We do showcases, and the picture that you are seeing on the screen along with this is a showcase that we had done in Delhi. This was done with a Canadian-based, very eminent dance filmmaker called Marie Brodeur. She was in Montreal. She came to Delhi at my invitation, and so these are all sort of penniless programs for me, because I hosted Marie in my house, and we did it like that.
So
we
this
do
was
dance.
Like they did work in progress, or it was all
so
full presentation?
Yeah, so there were many evenings. There were an evening of full presentations. There was an evening of work in progress, where the her editor husband and the music maker for it acted together. She did a small presentation for film students, you know, so that to start their minds thinking, which was separate from what she had done for the evening showcase, which was at the Habitat. Okay. We've also done dance photography exhibitions. Dance in the camera is very expansive. It's not only, and we also do Bollywood showings. If a film is about a dance filmmaker or has exceptional dance choreography, I would not have any hesitation in showing it and talking about it. And I'm not talking about Kalpana-like films. I'm talking about this Shringaram, which was the film that Sharda Ramanathan made on the Devadasis, and which also, by the way, has been participating in international dance film festivals elsewhere.
Yes.
We do talks, and interestingly, how about those people who use dance film or filmed dance as part of performance? Actually, in 2002, I had been invited to be the curator for the Kathak Kendra Kathak Mahotsav. And I snuck in the sub-theme of dance and the camera. And while I was told not to hassle the senior guru dancers, I could work with the younger dancers. And I remember taking Vikram, Iyengar and Debashri and telling them, I want you to do a production, a new production, which uses projected images of you that have been filmed during rehearsal or at different times. And it should be so seamless that I should not know where the digital is and where the live is, where the reel is and where the real is, kind of a thing. They did an excellent job. It was a piece that they call Bahuda, which means multiple ways of looking, you know. So then when I left for the Fulbright, when I came back, I got the most pleasant surprise. They presented me with a DVD. It was an 8-minute film, a dance film called Bahuda, which was inspired by all the conversations that we had had for that piece that they performed in 2002. Now, this Bahuda film became so popular, it got a jury nomination at Lincoln Center's very well-respected and renowned Dance for the Camera Festival. So I was really delighted, you know, slowly Indian dance films were making an impact. Can we get to the next one, please? Next slide. So dance films were of all kinds, and I'm very grateful. So this is a dance exhibition, a dance photography exhibition that we had done. Small cities in India seem to pick up the idea and run with it like this. I was invited by Chandigarh, Hyderabad, you know, non-capital cities kind of a thing. And wherever there was a dance department, things worked very well. Wherever there were active film clubs, things worked very well. They were fascinated with the idea that somebody had picked up just such a small sliver of the film industry to do it. Next, please. Are we getting? So then PSBT, Doordarshan, their films were all gaining in numbers, and PSBT has made some excellent dance films. So we were able to show them. I talked to you and so create a momentum around Indian dance filmmaking. The seminars we did in 2006 and 2007 helped bring everybody on board. The buzz began about dance filmmaking. I just want to mention that some of these films were shown even at Tihar jail. You remember? And that's because I was doing some social development work, social justice work in Tihar jail. So I had very good equations with everybody in the jail. And they had an education center. They used these films as part of their education process out there, you know. So unlikely spaces were getting used. Next, please. Next slide, if you can. Yeah. So soon the buzz became enough that festival directors of big film festivals, dance film festivals, were now in touch with me. They were surprised that there was so much activity going on in India. By the way, I need to just mention that the foreign filmmakers were so generous. They sent me their films. They just said, I'm so glad that you're doing something in India. Just show our films. They gave me an announcement that I would make before every film, a standardized announcement for them. And I would show their films. That's how in the most effective manner of myself and my briefcase and my laptop bag, the briefcase contained the dance films, I was traveling all over India and even overseas presenting dance lens. But then the festival directors started getting interested. And these are images of two festival directors who personally came and presented in India. The In Motion Chicago Dance Film Festival and the Greensboro Dance Film Festival. The Greensboro Dance Film Festival is a small boutique festival, but the Chicago International Dance Film Festival, which is In Motion, It's a big one. And
Emotion.
guess what? I have been on the jury of this festival. This year, I
Wow.
was part of the jury. And I have a message for from them to convey to all those who are watching this and all those who you can pass this message on to, that they have opened today, 1st August, the submissions for the next festival that they are doing, which will happen in January. And Cree Foundation is going to do a special India-based presentation at the In Motion Festival. And hopefully we will do the pre-event curtain raiser, through our efforts in the month of January, because their festival is in February. So 23rd January and 30th January will be these 2 events. And then February, they roll with their festival. But they're working 6 months in advance. So now is the time. Please Google In Motion Dance Film Festival and make it in. Now, I think we can
great
stop.
Piece of information that you have given us.
Thank you. I'm happy to
sure
share
everybody
it.
is grabbing
so now
it. Yeah.
I would like to say how you can do it in these times. Okay. Every time we put in a proposal for a grant, we actually have a small column that says photography and video documentation. And what do we do with it? We take pictures, we make a video, and then we submit one with the UC utilization certificate and give it into the Ministry of Culture, which gets buried into the big black hole that seems to be below the Ministry of Culture. And we keep our copy for ourselves. And nobody in the world sees it. Your work doesn't have 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th lives. What if you were to, and the beginning itself, plan out that you would like to make a dance film out of the process? So you're recording rehearsals, you're collecting photographs that make the whole process interesting, and then use that same money that you have apportioned. Today, good cameras are adequate for recording. You can just put it together and submit it to In Motion or Greensboro or any of the other dance films.
Something like it's the making, if you can document the making, like in film industry, they do it, they share the making of a film, that, the same way it could be done in our,
So I just need to mention another thing here. I hope this is a bit of a tip, that you must always do a single camera frontal view recording of your work. It is a reference point. If the work has to be recreated 25 years later, we have that as a reference point. But you can also do exciting multi-camera or different things and put together a most interesting film on the edit table.
Yes.
Okay, and today softwares are available for you to edit yourselves. So no new money has been put in, but your work has 2nd and 3rd life. You have multiple roles. If your film gets selected, you may even go to Chicago to present your film yourself, and you may win one of the awards there, and there may be a small purse to it or something like that. So the possibilities are many. Now you referred to my work on the danced poems that came out in the poetry that was written in the tough times of COVID. So I have been
poetry in the time of Corona, right?
Yeah. So I have been like many people are bathroom singers. I have been this casual poetry writer. Okay, I never took myself seriously, and most of my writing is in English. So when the things started happening, the first was the reaction to lockdown.
Should I?
You want me to show that, and I can talk a little bit about it before I go deeper into this COVID thing? Poetry, do we have the time?
Then we will close it, and then we can,
So basically, I want to mention to you that I have now started attempting writing on dance and the camera for the big screen and the small screen, for the domestic screen and the public screen. And here is an example of some research work that I was doing on the domestic scene. Do you know what an important role Doordarshan has played to support dance in India? So this was just, these are 2 producers who have played an iconic role in Doordarshan in creating that body of work that Doordarshan has of Indian dance. And I had them share their experiences. I gained a lot of points and details and things like that, but it all contributes to the writing that I am doing. In anticipation, I have already made a presentation at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts in New York in September 2019. But now the work is far more detailed, far more advanced, and I'm looking forward to publishing it in some journal, reputed journal. Now let's come back to this. We can cut this off and we can talk about the COVID poetry. Okay. So people's reaction to lockdown, people running around without masks, people cribbing about being stuck inside the house. I wrote this piece, this is a lockdown, not a lockup, So after it was written in English, and I just impulsively, literally, picked up the phone and dialed a dancer, very senior dancer, whom I greatly respect and admire. It's a lineage love, because I loved her guru Rohini Bhate also, and this dancer was Shama Bhate, and I rang up and I said, Shamaji, would you think of doing this? And Sangita, if voice can be an indicator, I can tell you, she says, hello. And then she says, yes, I will do it. I was so sure. Enthusiasm. 4 days later, she had this beautiful work, Shubha Muvantu. It's there on the internet and you can see it.
I have seen that, yeah.
Yeah, immediately. Yeah, the next, and it's all done in lockdown. Dancers are recording in their home, sending it to one person who uses a software on a domestic computer and puts that thing together. What a lovely piece it is, imaginatively treated. And I never interfere in the choreography, never. I send them the poetry and I say, now it is yours. Do with it what you want to do. So the next one is also very important that I would like to mention. Rama Vaidyanathan, the dancer, Bharatanatyam dancer, who you have featured in your Inspire series. Yeah, she is a very dear friend. She's also a fellow trustee and a founder trustee of Cree Foundation. I do a lot of work with Rama. One of our most important works has been something called Dance of the Birds, in which we have done an environmental activism. She has danced a Margam, a Bharatanatyam Margam, a sincere, authentic Bharatanatyam Margam, ala repu tutellana. And I have done the introductions in between, like a comparing, except this is not a comparing. There's no reference to ragas and all that. That's not the important thing. The important thing is the power of the argument, how we need to look after habitats that support our wildlife. We're taking the bird as the metaphor. So from beginning to end, many birds come into this picture. And I am a very avid bird watcher, and I shared my learnings and my knowledge and my understanding of nest making, of chicking, about the flight of birds. So Rama changed her movements to go with the birds and all that. And such a lovely program has come. Every time we have done it, people are shocked. Can there be a classical dance program like this? Yes, it is an out-of-the-box, very special classical dance program. So I mentioned this only to let you know that Rama and I work very well together. We were appalled by the attacks on the doctors and the COVID frontline workers. So we created this work. I wrote the poetry. Rama did it. It is inside the studio, her dance studio. She has used the mirrors very beautifully. You've seen that.
Yes. Sanidhi is playing the...
That's right. She's playing the duff and it works so well. Like this, everybody did their... I wrote 7 poems. At present, 6 of them have been danced. I'm waiting for the 7th to be danced. That's a bit of a surprise. It's also, I believe, one of the hard-hitting poems. So it needs a... I don't mind if the dancer takes the time on it. One of these poems was translated into Assamese. And it was just so timely because Assam's figures and numbers had started rising. And it was just the time when things could go wrong. So my Assamese friend and very eminent dancer, Sharadi Saikya, she translated it, danced it. It was beautiful. Her knowledge about the multiple arts of Assam is strong. So she used bhavna, khol, satriya, bhortal nritya. She used all this to create this really rich piece. So rich was the piece that Prague Television telecast it in public interest. It was as a public interest message. So, the potential is immense, and all this is happening sitting at home.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So the many dances that happened like this. It is very possible to do it. But here I have one thing that I want to say. we need to constantly keep upgrading our technologies. On old technologies, we cannot fulfill new dreams. So work on that. Work on your own skills. I am terrified of technology. But the fact that I can even come up with you and I know when I have to press the mute thing, it's a big step for me. So if I can take this step, please, you guys can run with it. You know, you all are so bright and intelligent. There's one of my poems, by the way, which has you in it also. It is
I
which
had the
fork
privilege,
we take. Yes.
Yeah.
And now that is an example again of partnerships. Pragjyoti International Dance Festival happens in Assam. My Gyan Bhumi. This is where I did my PhD. So young dancer, very eminent,
Anvesha.
Bismillah Khan Awardee and all that. Anvesa's behind it. She was not even 30 when she started this festival. What guts it takes, you know, to go flying like this. So as I started helping her out and partnering with her, and as my love for Assam, it's a giving back to Assam, giving back to Anvesa, who, by the way, interpreted for me on many occasions when I was in Assam and would come with me for my field trips and all that. And when she was to turn 10, the Pragjyoti, I said, you keep calling yourself international. Now let's have something really big. And we brought in the Ananya Dance Theatre, but I had already been associated with her and I continue to be associated with her. And it struck me that we talk about making communities, and I'm not so sure that we are making really strong communities. What I was seeing on the internet were lineages, either family lineages or guru lineages. But what about geographies? What about intangible geographies? A geography that happens in a space. Can a festival be a geography? So I said, over 10 years, you've seen, let's see how much there is engagement with the festival. So she wrote to a lot of dancers, and you were one of them.
Yes,
I accepted. And this new poem that I had written, Which Fork We Take, in which I say that dancers have an amazing capacity to alleviate the troubles of the world and use that capacity. And each one of you sitting in distant Belarus, distant France, distant America, and so many cities in India were able to do it so beautifully. And this is possible only in these times. Only on internet.
This is the opportunity that the pandemic has given us to go beyond our geographical limitations. And if we can leverage on that, that is a interesting way and intelligent way to bring it out.
I have often described myself as a catalyst. It is not given to me to achieve all that I dream of, but it is given to me to inspire others to start thinking in those directions. And sooner or later, somebody will do the achievement. That's good enough for me.
That's really great insight. Arshiya, I also wanted to ask that I was seeing your Cree Foundation's main thing. It was written that art activism, right? So if you could talk a little bit about it, because as you already said that you have done something on birds, and I again understand it is to bring out a certain kind of a social message, and also through your poetries that you did during this lockdown, each one had a very strong message to it. So what is your intent behind
First, Sangita, I really want to compliment you. You have obviously done your research very well on me. Yes, artivism is a word that is often used with Cree Foundation's work. It was not a word that I created. Actually, it's a word that doesn't exist. It is a created word, and it's not me who's created it. The credit for creating this work goes to Mr. Lalit Mansingh, the very well-known diplomat that India has had produced. He was the foreign secretary, he was an ambassador in the United States, and he is a true art lover. So after watching a particular program of Cree Foundations, he actually used this word, and I so fell in love with this word. I love playing with words, So I just grabbed it, and this has become our tagline, Cree Foundation Artivism. Also, I am a little tired of seeing dance and performance that is dance for dance sake or performance for performance sake kind of a thing. And I cannot believe that intelligent people like dancers and musicians and artists are, and they are very intelligent. They can visualize like architects. With a blank paper, they visualize the full building. These guys can visualize a full production with nothing to go by. And yet they don't seem to be seeing what is around them, you know. So I can't understand. There is a refugee crisis in the world. That photograph of that little boy found on the beaches, Alan, you know, thing. How could it not move you? How could not the many poor treatment that women are experiencing, the violence against women, the violence against minorities, the incredible damaging impact of climate change, how can this not impact you? How can you keep doing Ras of some sort, you know, Radha Krishna and all that all the time? If nothing else, at least use your iconic status when you stand on stage with 500 pairs of eyes looking at you, you know, intently, not even blinking, to get a social awareness message across. And that is the first step that you can do. Because, and don't tell me that it can't be done, because one time I had Vaibhav Arikar staying with me, and we had a lot of opportunity to talk across the dining table. And a week later, Vaibhav was to do his big annual festival that he does. And I said, Vaibhav, why are you not linking it with a social issue? He said, like what? I just started speaking. I hadn't even thought of it. And I said, dance is called Drishya Kavya. The way you consume it is through your eyes. What if you were to run a parallel drive at that time of the festival, using the festival to get people, you know, energizing them, creating an environment, catalyzing them to sign up for eye donation? All you have to do is to talk to an eye donation.
Innovative idea, I would say. Wow.
Yeah, and do you know 500 people signed up in the 2 days of the festival? What an amazing thing. I tell you, Sangita, next time you do something, you are doing an embodied dance. Your body is required to do the dance, right? So why are you not thinking about doing organ donation, a sign up for organ donation? Study the issue, talk about it, ask people to sign up, and have the organ donation NGO that works in this field partnering you for. They will be eternally grateful to you. Autism, these are things you don't understand. Till Tare Zameen Pe, you did not understand autism, you know. Now people do. So we need
dyslexia and
we need each one of you to help us understand those ignored, neglected, less understood areas that can make our world a better place. I have a motto, and I would like to share it with you. Work every day to make the world a better place for someone. It could be for yourself also. Sometimes you need to. Upgrading your computer is making the world a better place for yourself. But when you're calling up somebody who sounds little on the edge, and speaking to them and energizing them and making them feel good about themselves, that is for somebody else. And then you can work for a bigger cause, which will help so many people, people you will never see. You will not know who benefits from the effort you have put into motion. But put the effort into motion is what I am urging all of you to do.
Oh, beautiful, Arshiya ji. I think the way you have inspired us to think about this innovative ideas, how different fields can be interspersed, and also it is not only for the sake of, I would say, as you said, for a social activism, definitely it is there, but I also feel that the economic aspect also can be driven through these kind of collaborations. Where we most of the time are paralyzed by economics and arts.
I want to mention something. Of course, it is not relevant in the present world, but in many places in the world, foundations and donors donate to those who demonstrate, not talk about it only, but demonstrate a social awareness quotient. People choose to go to hotels that announce as part of the promotional strategies that we are an environment-friendly hotel. They may be asked, what are the measures you have taken to be environment friendly? And they'll say solar panel, we don't wash our towels and bed sheets every day. These are the sort of standard. But people choose to stay in those hotels which show a concern for the world. So
True.
being inclusive in your approach, being concerned about the world, these are things that are important for donors. And in the future, they're going to be even more important for donors. This public health crisis has convinced us that we have to think bigger than what we have been thinking. But it has also told us that a shock can come at any point of time and that no one can be 100% prepared and there are no immediate solutions. There are no pathways, even now, that have been thought of in the 4 months of the pandemic's lockdown or restrictions. There are no solutions. I call myself also a solution provider. I think solution. I don't only think problem, I think solution as well. And I'm telling you, other than these little things that I've discussed with you, that you can make your films, you can have a second, third life for your work that you have already produced at no cost or at low cost, there are no pathways of making it rich right now. Sustainability is good enough. When Mr. Ratan Tata, somebody as big as Ratan Tata, as successful a business icon as Ratan Tata says, 2020 is the year of staying alive, not of making profits. I ask you to hold on to that truth and work towards this. Pathways will emerge. How long is this to stay? You know, in the Spanish flu case, which was the only other similar pandemic that everybody keeps connecting this to, it was a 20-year story. People found ways. They lived. We will also find ways if this is going to be that long drawn. But at this point in time, there are no solutions in sight. There's no vaccine and there are no livelihood solutions in sight. So be smart, be astute, create protective nets for each other and work for the other. As a community, we can last this. But if each one pursues individual goals only, then I'm afraid it will be a dog-eat-dog environment.
Absolutely. That's a very, very important and valid point, Arshiya, that you have made. And I think the pandemic itself has given us this very needed view that no one in this, universe can really exist in isolation. Everybody needs the kind of, we are all interlinked and we are all in that, we need each other for every moment, and that happens same with arts, and there has to be a community approach towards dealing this situation in arts as well. So Arshiya, it had been a real great experience talking to you. I would like to say that there are so many viewers, those who are watching us, they have commented, they have, all of them have wished you. Kavita Dwivedi Didi, Rajika ji is already here. She's going to be with us tomorrow. So all the viewers, please stay there tomorrow as well.
I will be there for Rajika.
Navina Didi, she is here. Dr. Sunanda Nair, Divya Goswami, Shambhavi Shukla, many of them, Didi, are giving you immense wishes. They are commenting. But I'm really sorry that at this moment, if there is any question, I would definitely like to take. But most of them are reiterating what you have already spoken, and they are really happy, it seems, with the session. So
tell them that they can all message me or email me, and I'll be happy to answer to them individually. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm really grateful that you all have taken time out to join this conversation. And I would urge you also to join tomorrow's conversation, because you get a far bigger international perspective from Rajika's rich experience. So I think the two of them, that's my talk and Rajika's, together will be quite a something that will could benefit all of you. Yeah, thanks.
I'm sure, absolutely. And thank you so much, Arshiya ji, for spending so much time with us and giving such valuable inputs. And I think this is what we all need right now, as you rightly said, that the time is now that we enliven whatever we have, and we kind of relive with whatever resources that we have and save it for the future when everything goes better, and start to experience new things, learn new things. And I think this is a very good way that we are right now interacting with each other without any geographical barriers. And I'm sure that it is going to give us a very wonderful insight when we start working again on full time on the stage.
Inshallah, may that time come soon, because I know how artists are suffering. It's so urgent for them to be able to keep expressing themselves in different ways.
Yes, definitely.
So I understand the struggle very well. Anyway, thank you, Sangita. Pleasure being with you. Okay?
Same here.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.